To AM Agenda, I'm David Lipson in for Kieran Gilbert this morning. Let's go now to our political panel today. I'm joined by Labor MP Nick Champion, Liberal MP Kelly O'Dwyer, of course Kevin Rudd coming under a lot of questions there in relation to asylum seekers, and headlines this morning screaming that the PNG plan is in tatters, that it's sinking. Nick Champion, is the PNG plan in tatters?
Well, no, of course not. We are conducting ourselves in exactly the same way as we said at the outset of this plan, which is to put it in place. It's a relationship between Papua New Guinea and Australia, an agreement, and people will be processed and settled in that country.
But the boats are continuing to come through. Is the message not getting through?
Well, it was inevitable that some boats would always come. This is a people smuggling pipeline that's been created, so it's inevitable that we were always going to get some boats. The important thing, I think, from Australia's point of view, is to send a crystal clear message, and it's not just the government that has to send that message, but it's the opposition as well, is that if you attempt to come here by boat, you will be settled in Papua New Guinea. Now, the opposition says it supports this plan. We'd call on them to stop trying to undermine it, stop trying to conduct their own foreign policy in the process, stop verballing foreign leaders, and stop raising the white flag to people smugglers, and express that very crystal clear message that you won't be settled in Australia and you will be settled in Papua New Guinea.
Kelly O'Dwyer, is the opposition putting political interests ahead of the national interests on this?
Not at all, David. The opposition is doing what it should do, which is to ask Kevin Rudd the pretty basic questions about how this whole policy is going to operate. I mean, Kevin Rudd consistently has policy by press conference. Just because he has a press conference doesn't actually make it so. And there are very legitimate questions as to, firstly, what is it going to cost? Secondly, when is it actually going to apply from? Because Manus Island is already at capacity. It's at capacity at 300 people, and we've seen more than 500 people now arrive by boat since the announcement was made on Friday afternoon. How much of the foreign aid budget is being utilised? Already Australia is the third highest recipient of our own foreign aid budget. We have ripped more than $375 million out of that budget in order to shift it across to try and fill in the blowout that has happened with his border protection failures. But we know it's going to cost even more, and the government is not saying how much. We also have
Kelly
basic
O'Dwyer,
questions.
Kevin Rudd also there taking aim at a policy announcement that we're expecting today from the coalition, Operation Sovereign Borders, $10 million to be spent on linking 11 agencies together to tackle people smugglers. $10 million won't go very far though, will it?
Well, look, I'm going to leave the announcement to Tony Abbott and the Shadow Minister, as you would rightly expect. But clearly what we are going to be announcing today is about better integrating our response. It's about demonstrating that we have a very practical plan to help deal with this very complex issue, an issue that has been created by Kevin Rudd when he was Prime Minister, when in August of 2008 he dismantled the policies that were working.
Nick Champion, is there any scope for our agencies to have a bit closer cooperation on this issue?
Well, we all know that what this policy announcement today by Tony Abbott will be is sort of a jingoistic attempt to militarise this debate when he should be backing in our diplomatic and regional agreement efforts. Basically what the Liberal Party has insisted on doing throughout this debate is raising the white flag to people smugglers, to the Greens Party, to lawyers. That's what they did when they torpedoed the Malaysian transfer agreement. That's what they're doing now, and they're doing it all for base political purposes. And what they should be doing is backing in the national interest, and it's in the national interest that the drownings stop, and it's in the national interest that the boats stop, and it's in the national interest that this terrible trade stops.
What about
we
the
agree with that,
Nick
Nick,
Champion, on Manus Island, on Nauru? We've seen several different whistleblowers coming out against cruel and degrading conditions there. The former Australian Prime Minister also describing them as Australian gulags. As a member of a party which for many years attacked John Howard for his hardline stance, are you comfortable with the way these offshore processing facilities are being run?
Well, these allegations are very serious. The Minister is treating them very seriously. We don't want to see any crimes committed anywhere, and where crimes are committed, we want to see them reported promptly and dealt with promptly by the appropriate agencies.
Kelly O'Dwyer, are you satisfied that the Immigration Minister is now on PNG investigating these allegations firsthand?
Well, look, I don't think we can be satisfied at all by the government's response to allegations that have been raised. We know that for months and months the government has been aware that it can't send children to Manus Island because the facilities are not up to scratch and that there aren't the protections in place to ensure their safety. Now, the government has said in response to that it would fix that. Now, this was months and months ago. At the same time, it's now saying it's going to increase capacity. It hasn't fixed the first problem, and yet it says that it's going to radically increase capacity at Manus Island. Now, I said just before when I was responding to what Nick said that we agree with him, you have to stop the boats. You know, it's a problem created by the Labor Party that needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed because we need to have a humane response. We need to stop the fact that people are dying by sea by taking these voyages. But asking basic questions about how it's going to work is not raising the white flag. It is being responsible. There is a fundamental difference between raising the white flag and actually asking responsible questions. They know it doesn't withstand scrutiny. That's the issue.
Well, we'll have to wrap it up there. Kelly O'Dwyer and Nick Champion, thanks very much for your thoughts this morning on AM Agenda. Coming up after the break, we'll have all the headlines and the rest of the day's news.